Welcome, everyone, to the webinar today. My name is Jim Hassman. I'm the President and Chief Revenue Officer of Blues. And today's webinar is going to be on the topic of from factory floor to analytics dashboard with our guest from Output Industries, Tom Baker, who I'll introduce in a second. And they're going to talk about how their software and their solution transforms the manufacturing floor and improves the processes of output in those processes. Just real quick on myself as your host. I've been with Blues for almost 4 years now. I joined our CEO, Ray Ozzie, as his partner, and it's been an amazing journey. Blues is a company that helps product companies transform their products from physical devices into intelligent services. So what does that mean? Well, we are a hardware-led SaaS business. That is not a common thing, but we start off with little pieces of hardware that look like this. This is a device called the note card, and we have a bunch of these little note cards in cellular, satellite, Wi-Fi, LoRa, combinations thereof, and product manufacturers design the note cards into their products to help those products communicate to their cloud application. In addition to the note card, we have a piece of extremely integrated SaaS software called Note Hub. And Note Hub's purpose is to take data from the note card and push it to the customer's end cloud application. So we are not designing the physical products. We're making the middle challenging part much, much easier. And we do that at a price point that helps many manufacturing companies who have low price point products actually be able to utilize this. We're not talking about the John Deere's or the Teslas of the world. We're talking about the hundreds of thousands of other manufacturers out there that are designing connected physical products. And that's kind of our market. Just real quick, if I could share one thing. I want to share. Okay, can everyone see the Blues webpage here?
Yeah.
Okay, you can go look at what Blues does. You can look at our products, but I do want to cover one thing that's pertinent to today's conversation. It's this link right here, Wireless for PLC, Programmable Logic Controller. If you click on that, you're going to see this will show up in Tom's remarks today, but Blues provides this little wireless expansion pack for a PLC, specifically the Arduino Opta PLC. And the beauty of the combination of this PLC with Blues's little wireless expansion pack is that you can add this to your manufacturing lines completely off the internet with no cable required. You simply plug in the PLC, plug your sensors into it, plug the Blues wireless into the PLC, and this thing works highly secure off of the internet, no cable and no Wi-Fi required. You just plug it in and go. So you can go look at that more later. That's enough about Blues, but I want to get into why we're here, and that's to listen to Tom and Output. So Tom, maybe have everybody get to know you a little better and then a little bit about your company, and we can get right into it.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks, Jim. Thanks for the intro. Yeah, let me just share my screen. I've got a few slides to kick us off, but keen not to make it too slide heavy. Got a bit of a demo I'm going to jump into as well. So hoping you can all see my screen there. So yeah, my name's Tom Baker, CTO of Output Industries. Output Industries was founded back in 2022. Me and my co-founder, Mike Wright, founded it, and really we started off in the MES space. So we really started off building MES software for manufacturing, and that's kind of where we cut our teeth. And from that evolved our product called Busroute, which I'll come on to in a minute. But really, what we're building with Busroute is a very focused platform on manufacturing performance, and it's all around delivering value quickly. And I think that's probably going to come up quite often in our talk today, is talking about kind of the path to value, the time to value, the monetary value of the value and being able to get to that quite quickly, that's really where we come from as a business in manufacturing. Like I said, we started on MES, so it's worth just briefly mentioning here. Apollo Tyres are a strategic client of ours that we build MES solutions for. We have done since 2021. We've actually been building solutions. So even prior to us founding the company, we were building MES solutions for them. Really, really big company. We have a single version of MES across all of their plants, and that really comes back to a lot of what we're going to talk about later, kind of abstraction layers and about creating a single version of software that's running across multiple sites and getting that scalability. Again, we've built all of that in an MES solution for one particular client here, and that software now handles 4 global factories. Soon will be more than 4. We're taking on, they've got 7 worldwide, and we'll be soon taking on all of those factories. A huge number of tires and product move through that, a huge amount of data. So that's really where we came from. My background is as kind of head of digital within a manufacturing organization. So I spent a lot of time on the shop floor, getting into data projects, getting into kind of cloud migrations to understand how data and technology can help improve manufacturers and improve their output. But really what we're here to talk to you today about is Busroute, which is a dedicated manufacturing performance platform. It really came from that understanding of MES and understanding how slow those systems can be to implement and how in-depth and detailed they need to be, and what can we do to create a SaaS product which delivers value a lot quicker. Really, it's about, again, creating a single platform. And our dream here is to create a single platform that enables us to optimize manufacturing, not just across individual work centers and plants, but even across entire industries. And again, I think we'll come back onto this point about kind of being able to compare apples with apples when it comes to data, and about abstraction layers and creating these layers of data that actually enable us to compare and contrast things on an equal footing. And that's, it's tends to be a big problem with open-ended IoT platforms is they're so open-ended, they're so configurable. What you end up going into is too much customization, and then you cannot compare data. You cannot bring data back together under a single, what I would call data dictionary, where everything means the same thing. You can no longer do that because that you've lost this control of the schema. You've lost this control over that data structure. And in Busroute, we very much keep that as a core part of the product. So we have kind of the key metrics that manufacturers are looking for. So you'll recognize some in here like OEE, overall equipment effectiveness, cycle time analysis, downtime analysis, asset utilization. They're all in here, but we've built those data structures into our product to enable businesses to get up and running very, very quickly. We can walk onto a shop floor, and rather than having it be an open-ended question about what data we're looking for, how we might be able to pull that data in for this type of condition monitoring, or whatever it might be, we come in with, again, what I would describe as a playbook, where we have a more solid idea of exactly what data points we're looking for, how they layer up into our product, and then ultimately the value you get out the other end, which is the important bit, which is why we're here, is the value out the other end. We're not here to deploy technology for the sake of deploying technology. We're here to deploy it to generate value. I think that's something that we kind of always hold very close to our product development, is that ethos. Clearly, the Blues device plays into that in our ability to deploy rapidly, and our ability to give all sizes of manufacturers, small manufacturers, big manufacturers, a solution which is going to work for them out of the box and is going to be best practice. So, broadly speaking, this is a screenshot of our product. Again, I'll jump into the product in a minute, but it's your entire factory on a single screen, bringing all of that data into one place and allowing you to cross-compare it and cross-analyze it is really the business that we're in when it comes to Busroute. Like I said, we work with a wide variety of customers, big and small, Apollo, guys like Terex, Kawasaki. So a large number of customers we work with. It's not just a single vertical. It's not just certain size of business. We work across a wide range of businesses with our solution, and we've had a lot of success with Terex. This is their Dungannon site. Working with our software, their team was able to increase utilization and output efficiency by 11% without increasing headcount. And that's just it's really about paying attention to the details and Busroute enabling them to do that. Closely monitoring their machine when it comes to things like asset utilization and production output, being able to understand the periods of downtime when their assets are not being sweated as hard as they should be, and being able to address that very, very quickly. So whether that's things like short interval control, where you're having regular meetings with the team, or other team meetings, you have that data available to you to immediately say that we're losing this much value for these reasons, and let's crack on and address those as quickly as possible. I'm not going to go too much of the product. I've got a product demo I'll jump in and out of in a minute, so I won't go through too much in detail, but the real-time aspect of the data is very, very important. So being able to feed back to operators very, very quickly means that you're able to adjust and course correct throughout the day and get that performance back, rather than looking back on it the next day or the next week and saying, why did we miss that target? It's too late. You can't do anything about it then. Whereas with that real-time data, like I said, you can course correct throughout the day, and you have that opportunity to claw back or to ensure that you reach back to performance as it's happening. The kind of analogy I always use is like a game of football. Trying to play a game of football without knowing the scoreline, and then getting to the end of the match and someone just being like, yeah, you lost by 3 points. It would have been a lot more effective if the players had known the score when they were playing and they could have done something about it. And I think that's the difference between real-time data and data after the fact, essentially. We do have some tablet devices that live on the machines as well. These act as interfaces on the outside of these machines to give some, again, real-time feedback to the operators so that they can interact with the system primarily, but also it gives us a way of capturing data that isn't always possible to capture through the machine. So I'll come on to it in a minute, but yeah, like Jim said, we use the Arduino Opta alongside the Blues for the Arduino Opta that gives it that cellular capability. That enables us to automatically capture data from machines, whether that's an old machine or a new machine. We have lots and lots of options that enable us to do that. But there's always going to be some pieces of information that maybe are not accessible through the machine. And this might be a downtime cause that comes from the operator, for example. Yes, the device is capable of automatically capturing some downtime reasons, if that reason is connected to something the machine is quote unquote aware of, like a jam or something like that. But sometimes it's not something that can be measured automatically, and in which case we will defer to the operator for them to give us a cause code that feeds back into that data. Heat maps, overall asset utilization, are very valuable as well. Being able to put things on a single screen and really showing shift leaders or production managers exactly the hotspots of where they're hitting that performance and where they're missing their targets. Energy monitoring, I'll come on to in a separate piece as well. I think one piece that we layered on here is also input consumption and energy consumption. So we had those core metrics earlier, kind of asset utilization, OEE, production throughput. If we can then start to layer on input consumption within manufacturing and be able to attribute that at granular level, okay? So not just getting your energy bill at the end of the month and trying to work backwards from that as to what happened to all of that energy that went into your plant. Was it wasted? Even if it wasn't wasted, what processes did it go into? What product types did it go into? Without that granular level of attribution that IoT gives us today, it's really hard to find those answers. And I think with the combination of technology we've got now, monitoring things, clearly electrical energy is the key one, but we can also measure gas consumption. Compressed air is a huge source of energy consumption for some manufacturing processes, and even steam, which is big in the tire industry. Measuring each of those types of consumption and then being able to attribute it all the way down to individual pieces of equipment, and even being able to attribute it to individual products and parts, gives us very valuable information with regards to waste, but also cost attribution. So understanding the cost input to the production. Operator app I've touched on. I've thrown this slide in here just to illustrate it. I think it will make more sense when I do jump into the demo, but essentially the setup is we have connected workstations on the shop floor. We have the Arduino Opta device plus the Blues device giving that cellular connectivity. But I think it's really crucial to mention as well, the Blues device adds this layer, there's a VPN tunnel on top. So the communication between the Blues device and Blues Note Hub is essentially an encrypted tunnel that isn't exposed to the public internet. Look, if you go into very sophisticated manufacturing environments, they will a lot of the time have plans for IoT, and the Opta does allow things like Ethernet connectivity. But again, part of the hurdle of the time to value is getting through these hurdles of procurement and the IT department, and having an incredibly robust solution like Blues that can plug into the Arduino Opta, and it creates a fully encrypted connection between the device all the way through to our endpoint, is incredibly valuable. And it's incredibly comforting for the IT team to know that we have that solution that we can give to them, which is just best in class IoT connectivity that isn't going to swamp their network. How does this work with scalability is a big question. When we go into organizations, okay, you've hooked up 10 machines. That's great. What about 1,000 machines? Is my network going to be able to cope? And having options we can give them that scalability out of the box is what we're all about. Everything we do, we say out of the box, batteries included, those kind of terminologies. So having this hardware, which again fits that philosophy we have of, here is an option out of the box, is not the only option. Feel free to go and pursue other options of connectivity, whatever it might be. But here's a fantastic option out of the box, and that's what that gives us. And that's the connection through to Note Hub. And then just to complete that picture, within Blues Note Hub, we have an MQTT route set up that forwards those messages onto bus route, which then does its thing and distributes them through the bus route platform. So that's generally the setup we're looking for with our customers on the between the Opta and the Blues device there.
Tom, maybe just a few points of summary here. So at the beginning, you talked about the MES platform that you guys provide, and I just want to make sure that the audience knows you're doing that for a single customer, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you
That's
have
right.
this bus route platform, which you provide to any manufacturer who would find value in it, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, we started off on MES, and like you said, that was very much for one client building it's a very bespoke platform. I think that's worth pointing out. Apollo Tyres are at such a scale that it warrants them having a bespoke MES solution that essentially worked globally for them. $2.9 billion tire company, huge company that now runs one platform across the lot. We took the learnings from building those platforms, building the MES platforms, and we brought it to what we call a dedicated manufacturing performance platform. So it's not a SaaS MES solution. There are plenty of SaaS MES solutions out there. What we wanted to do is deliver something that delivered value very, very quickly. And that's our SaaS product for bus routes. So yeah, for those people that might not be aware, MES, manufacturing execution system, that is essentially providing track and trace, barcoding, transportation management, inventory management, something called laboratory information system integration. So it'll integrate with the chemical testing that goes on in the factory, making sure that product isn't allowed to move beyond a phase if it hasn't passed testing. All of that rules-based system that, the key word there is execution in MES, it's very much part of the manufacturing process. Bus route takes a slightly different attitude. Bus route's almost an outside observer looking in. It's not there to control the manufacturing of your product. It's there to observe and to increase the throughput and performance of the factory.
So bus route is, like most software applications that are helping make inferences, probably not helpful without data. I would assume. And let's say you go into a company, they say, hey, we've got 4 plants or 2 plants or 6 plants or whatever it is. We're interested in bus route. Is the starting point when you're looking at a deployment for them to look at what machines they actually do have data from, step 1. And then step 2, for those that they would like data from, is this where you would introduce the Opta and the Blues Wireless as a potential data generator?
Yeah, so the Opta really that gives us a fantastic option, which is that that we don't have to worry too much about what the machine is already doing with its own PLC. We can absolutely connect to PLCs and pull data from them, but with the Opta we have this ability now to what I describe as kind of side loading an analytical device. The Opta is a PLC. It's a micro PLC. It just happens to have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and Ethernet and obviously the Blues device that can be connected to it as well. So it is of the right industrial standards and grades to be used. But what it means is we can go in and rather than asking the question, what data do you already have, and trying to work backwards from that, we can go in and say, what's your most critical part of your manufacturing? What's your most critical machine? Don't worry about whether you have data, don't have data, whether you think it's easy or hard. Let us worry about that because that's what the platform's there for. And let's focus on making sure we deliver something for you right off the bat, which is, to be frank, going to blow people's socks off, and I think that's the struggle of software a lot of the time in industry is being able to make a good impression quickly. And I think you win advocates by doing that, and then that gives you a lot of leeway then to go into different parts of the factory. So we want to deliver the biggest impact as quickly as possible. And that just means, look, what's most valuable to you? Let's connect into that machine, get the signals that we're after. And it's a subset of signals, it's production cycle complete, it's productivity, it's a line speed, it's an energy signal. We have a finite list of what we call IoT signals that we look for. And it does mean that we can walk into a factory and roll out quite quickly. And again, it comes back to this concept of comparing apples with apples. Sometimes if you're using that machine's data and that machine's data from that vendor and that machine's data from that vendor, they don't always come together in a nice way that you can just analyze and cross-compare them because they've all got their own slight twists on that data. By having a standardized device that can be rolled out quickly on a standardized set of signals, IoT signals, you do have that comfort and confidence that you're comparing the same thing against each other.
Okay, cool. So you can almost take a position that we don't need to interfere with or disrupt the existing mechanisms that are, whether it's a PLC or a vendor's own proprietary solution. You don't need to disrupt that or try to tap it. You can actually say, hey, we can go on the side of this thing and we can get the signals that we need, and we can do that, harmoniously across all machines, regardless of what the initial vendor had set up. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, just to illustrate, what a setup looks like. So in this case, we're using essentially CT clamps in this setup. This is a very high amperage setup. So these go up to about 2000 kiloamps for this particular application, but it's a really robust industrial setup. So we've got a calibrated energy meter here, which is providing, kilowatt hours, amps, but also voltage, things like power factor. They're all being measured by this, standalone, very sophisticated device. We haven't had to compromise on the types of equipment we can use because we're using a standard industrial protocol, Modbus, to be able to speak to the Arduino and bring that data in. The Arduino then obviously passes that data over to the Blues device, which then broadcasts it in according to that diagram I just showed earlier. This device here can be swapped out for a wide range of devices. So we have a more traditional three-phase energy meter here. This is a through. This is a kind of a through and through. So rather than it using coils, this would kind of interrupt the supply, and this goes up to 100 amps. We then have other options which are different, types. So that's just energy capturing there. But the device itself, has the input pins along the top that we use to pick up on certain signals within the machine. So generally, it's things like relays, optocouples, motor controllers can be, they're analog pins as well. You can see here between 0 and 10 volts or digital input. So these are very, very versatile, isolated inputs. So the key there is, like I said, this isn't a piece of homemade hardware. This is a very sophisticated piece of industrial hardware made by a company that really know what they're doing. These inputs can be used to monitor analog and digital signals in parallel, and that gives us a huge amount of flexibility. Like I said, our signal list is finite. So if I go into our signal list here, we're really looking for production cycle complete, productive signal, and that comes down to kind of the lean concept of value-adding activity, line speed, energy, and error codes, etc. So you can kind of think about these as correlating to the pins on the opta. It's not always as simple as that, but that's kind of what we're looking for on each of these pins. Is if you feed us each one of those signals, then straight off the bat, you can jump into bus route and you can start to get valuable information about what it is that machine is doing. So this is the kind of heat map that we were talking about here, where we're able to understand what that machine was doing at any point throughout the day. So we've got time along the bottom, we've got each of your workstations here. The way I describe what bus route's kind of doing in real time is it's almost like this Venn diagram of shop floor context or manufacturing context combined with the real-time IoT data that's coming through from these devices. And it's really the intersection of those two data sources and you know, metadata or context data, whatever you want to call it, is managed, you know, down here in bus route. So if I go into a SKU, within that SKU, I can configure things like, you know, the performance in units per hour, what a batch size is, what its value is, things like downtime thresholds. If I go into a station, which is what, you know, a workstation, again, there's contextual data. You know, what shift pattern is it on? What group is it part of? How should its performance be monitored? What's its speed scale? All of these contextual pieces of information all get blended with that real-time IoT data. So when I hover over just one of these blocks, Bus Route has brought all of that together. It's combined all of that together into a single object. And that single object gives us, you know, the percentage of productivity. So that's coming from the IoT signal in terms of how often was it engaged in manufacturing. What was its output production count? Is good production. If the concept of bad or reject production is there, again, these devices measure that and bring that through. And then, you know, I won't go into all of this, but there's energy consumption going in here. All of this data is brought together under a single object, and it's blended. The metadata that is managed by the business through things like ERP, MRP, scheduling systems, all of that traditional static information is being pretty harmoniously blended with that IoT data that's coming in to give, you know, valuable information to the business. So hopefully at a glance here, they can see, you know, productive, not productive. If it was productive, what was it making? What was its output? And I think, you know, what I touched on earlier was around measuring value, right? And it's something else we can do in the platform, and we really like to promote is bringing everything back to a monetary value. So again, in this case, we're looking at the total value of production output. This is not a guess. This is not an estimate based on the plan. This is the real number based on what the machine actually did, because we know whether the machine was running or not. We know whether it finished a production cycle or not. So we're able to combine that with, again, the contextual or metadata around the value of the product to give you an accurate production output value. Then because we know that, we also know the opportunity cost of the downtime. So we know what should have been made. You know, example in this diagram, this is a short interval control chart. So this is telling us what we should have made each hour. The red is the shortfall. So we should have been up here. We fell short by 1,200 units in this case, but the value of those 1,200 units that we didn't make was, in this case, £2,300. So we're able to quantify the lost opportunity. And I think this is super valuable. This is really what's cut through with a lot of our customers and open some eyes is being able to really pull things back to the monetary value, like I said at the beginning, the path to value, the time to value, but then actually what is the value of the value? What's the monetary value of that? And again, being able to pull that through is very eye-opening, and it's a very powerful thing to be able to show.
Well, there's your one-liner for the webinar, the value of the value.
Value of the value.
You know, I'm wondering, people that are watching this, what questions they have in their mind. Maybe a question is, and I'm guessing for you audience, feel free to drop questions in the chat. But okay, so you're showing me this software that if I give it the right sets of data and the right constructs around my process, it can show me this output that you've presented on this last page of the application. How would one go about getting one of these Optas and one of these Blues devices and hooking it up? Is that something that output has to do? Is that something I, the customer, have to do? Like, what does that look like?
So both options are available. We work a lot with maintenance teams, internal maintenance teams for larger organizations. We also have our own teams that are familiar with, the Opta and the product, and that's not hard because it's a really well built industrial product that's well documented, et cetera, et cetera. Both are available, and I would say at the moment for our customers it's 50-50, that we'll jump on a call with them and we'll give them a demo of Bus Route, and we'll talk more specifically about what it is that they're doing. And quite quickly from that conversation, it will be like, look, we've got guys here that are really happy to jump on this and do it themselves. And they're actually really excited to get involved in Industry 4.0 and great. And in that case, they are free to go and procure this hardware themselves and go and run with it. One of the beauties of
What's the fastest you've seen somebody hook one of these things up?
on it, it was probably a customer from like 2 weeks ago. Some people just clicks, right? And I think it's as soon as we showed them the product and as soon as we sent it to them, honestly, less than a week. I think he had ordered the hardware, or the hardware had arrived like on the Monday, and by Wednesday we were getting a call just to be like, oh, just to check, am I, if I do this, this, and this, is that okay? And it's like, yeah, like use all of the input pins, like. And the thing is as well, right, it doesn't even need to be one device per station. If you've got two machines close enough to each other and they share a panel, they share a box, you can multi-use those pins. So he was really going to town on it. And I think, there's a commercial aspect of what we do, which is we charge per station. So it's almost like, yeah, look, we're really happy for you to connect up as many stations as you can. But yeah, the account needed to be configured to basically accept that much data. And once people start running with it, and I think this is the beauty of this setup, is I think once it clicks and you get it, it's transferable to so many different types of machines, so many different processes. People can visualize how this device, I can add it to this, and I can add this sensor to it. I can do this. And before you know it, it's kind of gaining a life of its own. It's gaining a pace, and it's really grabbing the whole factory. And that's what we want, because we want a complete picture. So we want a solution that is capable of scaling across an entire factory, because I think that's really where you get the value, is where, especially when it comes to like energy attribution, this is one thing we speak to our customers about, is, they've got an energy bill. They've got I'll share my screen because that just gives you some illustration of how Bus Route handles this. So we've got something in Bus Route called the Data Explorer. The Data Explorer is really the tool we use to compare lots and lots of different things. So at the moment, it's a hierarchical view of the plant. So in this imaginary plant, it's called Thurston. It has all of these work areas. We call these groups, and 9 times out of 10, these are physical groups that relate to physical areas of the factory, but really the customer's free to configure these groups how they want. So there's your kind of hierarchy here. And at the moment, what we're looking at is a scheduling data versus production output data. So we're looking at the total number of machine hours, how many of those were in shift, how many of those were scheduled to produce something, what was the production output. If I switch over to, let me just do stops, for example. So now if I go to stops, it's the same structure, but we're now looking at the total number of stops, the total amount of downtime, the average mean time between failure, the average mean time to recover, and what that downtime cost was. But if I now bring in something like energy, and I'll just keep this as kilowatt hours for the moment. If I just fold everything back up to the top, you've got a number which in theory should correlate to your energy bill, across whatever period we're looking at here. So for a single day, 4,500 kilowatt hours, that should correlate to what's on your bill. Now, what Bus Route can do is drop that down. Okay, well, that's where all of that went, right? And now only 2 of these example areas are hooked up to energy, but that's where this went in terms of a breakdown. And if I break that down again, we can see all of those areas. So what it allows you to do is attribute that energy consumption to the various areas. And I think most people who run facilities will have a gut feel for where the energy is going. But to actually know where the energy is going is crucial, especially when it comes to finding waste. And again, as an example of being able to then cross compare this, because Busroute knows your production output, it can do that division for you. And therefore, Busroute knows what your energy per output unit is. So this is a good metric for kind of doing cost attribution of your production. But again, because Busroute knows the amount of time your machine was productive for, so if I go back to the pulse chart and look at a very poorly performing machine, let me pick this top one. Okay, so for most of the day, it sat there outside of a shift, and then it sat there for a long time, completely unscheduled. So this is bad. You don't want your machines just sat there not doing anything because they don't have a production schedule. And then it did work for a long time, and then it had a brief spot of downtime in the afternoon, and then it added. What Busroute will do is it will take the entire energy consumption of that unit, and it will divide it down only by the amount of productive time that you got out of that machine. And the value of that is being able to spot waste. So if you're turning on machine on too early, even though it's not doing anything, if you're leaving it on, if you're doing anything which is consumption that is not related to output, that will come through in this data, because you will start to see your energy per production hour going up. You don't want that. You want to, you want the best efficiency per productive hour. And really, to get to this number is a hell of a lot of cross comparing of context and IoT data to get to this number, which is really simple to understand once you have it. But to get there, it's actually a combination of a lot of things.
If if um if I, the customer, figure out how to install one of these, I feel like the skills from that initial installation will translate machine by machine. I may tweak things here and there, but the general premise, I got 80% of what I need to know typically after that first install, and then I can
Yeah.
just go. How does Busroute know when I've added another micro PLC with the Blues expansion? Is there a place in the software I go? Do I contact output to say, hey, I've got
Yep.
another device that has data?
Yeah, so within Busroute, there is a way of generating essentially a device ID, which is a unique ID that we will kind of pre-give you. Depending on your setup, whether you're using Blues independently of us or whether we're operating Blues for you, that device ID goes into the MQTT relay. So coming back to that original, again, let me just share my screen to be clear. Coming back to this diagram that I showed. So Blues handles the first two verticals here. These, the connected devices to the Blues Note Hub. You can't mess it up. It all just works for you. As soon as you plug, you don't even need to put a SIM card in the Blues device. As soon as you power it on, it's going to connect to the best cellular network, and you're going to get all of this information flowing into Note Hub. From there, within Note Hub, you will configure an MQTT route, and this route here is what will contain that unique device ID that Busroute generated. Because Busroute generated it for you, it knows it's you, it knows it's your account, and it will associate that station data with a station in Busroute. It will actually appear as a new station inside Busroute. From there, you're then free to kind of rename it, etc. So it would all start, if I look at the station list, it would all start, every time you connected something, it would all start stacking up here. Now, it wouldn't be associated to a station group. It wouldn't have any associated metadata at that point. What you then do is you can go in and edit it and say, okay, this newly connected device is part of the CNCs, and it uses, let's say it uses a special shift pattern. For whatever reason, these guys only work at night. You'd come into your shift patterns, you'd add a new shift pattern. You'd create your shift pattern here. So they only work Monday, I don't know, whatever weird shift pattern they choose to use. Busroute, this is what I'm calling kind of context, is your ability to chop and change this as a shift pattern. So I'll just call that weird shift, and then you can save that. And then in your station, you would then essentially be able to come in here and say, yeah, this station is working the weird shift, and et cetera, et cetera. You start to fill in the metadata, but that's seamless. That from the Note Hub onwards, well, from the Blues device onwards, it's quite a smooth data flow into the platform.
I would say that, and don't quote me on this, everyone who's listening, but I would say that once you've installed one of these and kind of done the first iteration, 2 through N should actually be quite fast. And when I mean fast, I'm not talking about weeks of time. Like we're talking minutes to hours or days at the most. Like, so this could all happen fairly quickly for you. There's a question on security in passing data from the machine to bus route through Note Hub. I'll take this one. Blues is a highly secure device. I mentioned at the beginning of the call, our core product are these note cards with Note Hub, and we created the wireless expansion for PLC using the note card. The note card is inside of it. I probably should have said that earlier, but the note card is a highly secure device. It is the communication mechanism. And in the case for the wireless for PLC, it's a cellular connection. And when Blues communicates data from a machine through the note card to Note Hub over cellular, it's doing it over a private VPN and TLS with full encryption. So I think the benefit for your IT teams is that number one, they don't have to pull cable. Number two, they don't have to let this rogue device on their Wi-Fi network, which also reduces their security risk profile. This thing is standalone, it's off internet, and it's not on your network. So there's like three check boxes on your IT security review, and they can look into the encryption too if they want, but it uses best encryption practices for today's time. When it lands in Note Hub, it is decrypted, and from there you set up your MQTT route, pass it right into bus route. So it's highly secure. We have all types of customers from all industries, from you name it. There's not an industry we're not in with some version of the note card. So it is a highly secure, highly accepted device. How are we doing on time? I think we're right there. Tom, anything else you would add before we close this?
There was just one question which I think I can answer, just on someone submitted a question, which was what are the minimum qualifiers for a legacy instrument to be considered fit to transition to a smart device? So how old does a machine, or how new does a machine need to be before it's eligible for this? And again, I think the Opta device provides a lot of great options. Like I said, it is a PLC. It doesn't even require there to be an existing PLC there. If it's an electrically operated device, it's 99% sure the Opta is going to be able to connect to something to get data off. Even for some customers, we've gone as basic as and-on lights. The and-on lights are already on top of the machine. We'll wire into those and we'll get the running, not running signals from something like that. So it does allow us to go, the reality is there's no one's really operating a machine in a factory these days, which is other than a hand operated machine or something, it's going to be able to connect to there. But it does give you that option to go, or we work with modern machinery, it's just been manufactured, because we're still able to pull from those same signals. So it gives a huge variety on the type of equipment that can be connected to.
Excellent. Well, we really appreciate you joining our Blues webinar today. Hopefully this was a interesting topic for everybody who chose to attend. I know there were quite a few signups, so we're happy for all of you who took time out of your day to listen. And again, if you're interested in bus route, Tom's information is in the thread. If you need help with the Arduino Opta or the Blues wireless expansion, you can contact Tom and his team can help you. You can contact us at Blues and we're happy to help you. The Arduino team is also able to help. So yeah, lots of ways to get your hands on product. And again, thank you for your time today.
No, thanks for having us, Jim.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Yeah, bye-bye.